word? Hey everyone, hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Shelly, and today I'm going to be talking about the Arlong Park Arc. There you go. There you go. If you have no idea what I just said and you are new here, then I'll say that I am slowly but surely documenting my journey through One Piece by Oda, and I am at the arc that is so lovingly called the Arlong Park Arc. Yes. And let me think. It starts on chapter 69 and I believe it ends on chapter 95 or 96. And today I'm going to be talking about, well, this whole video will document the journey through this arc. And in this moment, I'm going to be talking about the first chapter because I was like, there's too much to talk about and so much being hinted at that I must get all of my thoughts out right now. What a doozy of an introduction. Mostly, this is the book channel. I like talking about what I'm reading, how I'm feeling about what I'm reading, all of that jazz. I'm someone that absolutely loves books and reading, and so this is very emblematic of what you will find on my channel. If you like the vibe, I would encourage you to subscribe because it really means a lot to me. Without any further rambling on, let's go ahead and get into the meat of this video. Also, algorithmically liking the video really helps. Leaving comments, which y'all are amazing at, and you're all amazing at liking the video, and letting the video play all the way through, even if you're not watching it, is one of the things that algorithmically helps with the lifespan of the video, which is always surprising, the way the algorithm changes. And I'm not someone who's a total slave to the algorithm in any way, shape, or form, but it is something that crosses my mind. So if you're ever wondering what can help the health of my channel, those are some things that can help the health of the video and the health of the channel. You're not here for that though. You are not here for that. You are here for the Arlong Park saga. Okay, first thing, the chapter thing. The chapter heading, oh my gosh, like the chapter art here, it's probably giving some glare. I will put in a photo. It's Christmas, y'all. It's Christmas. It's a Christmas cover. I feel like when Oda wrote this 20 years ago, he knew that I, Shelly Swearingen, was going to be reading this. I know. I think so lowly of myself that I, 20 years later, would be reading it, Christmas of 2023, diving deeper into his world, falling a little bit more in love with this thing that he has created. And he was just like, look, I know she's going to be reading it right around Christmas, and so I just want to give a little nod to her during this holiday season. And so he created the cover art just for me. I kid y'all. But this, oh my gosh, wow. It was so cool to open up the chapter and be like, because as I'm sitting here now, it's the day after Christmas, and I'm just so excited. Okay, wow, that just really put things in the right frame of mind for me. So I'm just actually gonna go through the chapter, the whole thing, because there were so many things that I was like, what's happening? We meet Sanji and Luffy on a boat with one of the brothers, which I have been so lovingly told that they weren't Zoro's actual brothers. They were like bros, like a term of endearment among men in Japan, and it's a sign of respect. And so we're not actually with Zoro's brothers, but we're with one of Zoro's bros, like his friends, pals, bosom buddies. You get what I'm saying. It's really interesting to read comments from you all who have so much more context for the characters than I do. And when I first meet a new character, it does take a little while. I would say it almost like it hits me an arc later how much I actually like them. So for example, it wasn't until Buggy started showing up in his journey, like his journey without limbs and a torso, in the chapter art, did I realize just how much I was attached to Buggy. It wasn't actually during his arc that I was feeling any kind of, any kind of warm feelings towards him. The same has happened with, I think right away I really liked Nami. It took a minute for Zoro as well. Like it wasn't until maybe his backstory and actually joining the team that I was like, okay, this guy's all right. I'm on board. Same thing with Usopp. And weirdly, same thing with Sanji. Like, I'm like, okay, so he really loves the women's. And he's got this circle eyebrow, and his backstory was amazing. Baratier, I've learned how to say it, y'all. The Baratier arc was very much centered around Sanji, and his desire to chase the all blue and his relationship with those on the ship as well, most notably Chef Zeph. It's just taken a minute for his character to like sink in. And so, so as of right now, I'm like, I have warm feelings towards Sanji, but I don't have a lot of developed thoughts about him. But one thing I've noticed is that he is all about the women. Like, he loves the ladies. He's like, mermaids? I'm all about some mermaids. Oh, we're gonna go look for Nami? I'm on board for finding Nami. It was interesting because the whole through line with the Baratier storyline really started and ended with Sanji, even though sometimes I felt like he wasn't even playing the main character of his own story throughout the whole thing. I think a lot of it was about some of the bigger themes and some of the bigger world building and about Chef Zeph and the reveal of someone's own desires and what they'll give up for someone else. However, it was not lost on me that Sanji's kindness towards Gin was what started the arc, and it's ultimately what saved everybody, what saved everybody in the end, and like what really made the biggest impact for everybody in the end, because Gin made choices about the gas mask and his own fighting skills, and he made choices within the battles based on the kindness that Sanji showed him. So it was kind of an interesting thing, but I am noticing that I'm like, I don't want to say like I'm slow to get there, but sometimes I feel like I'm introduced to somebody and I feel a little bit like, who's this new person? I'm not quite like Luffy where I'm like, you are joining our team. I'm like, whoa, Luffy, just give me a minute. Meet Shelley Swearingen, the reader, give me a minute. I'm not on board with him yet, so slow it down. And then some of you were like a little bit like, why haven't you talked a lot about Sanji? And I was like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. But anyway, so he is on board. It's him, Sanji, Luffy, the brother. They're all hanging out on this boat trying to find Nami. Sanji's like, true to form, he's like, Nami, I would love to be on this boat alone with her. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And then, he's like, and mermaids? Anywhere there's mermaids, I'll be there. Like, you need somebody to help you out with some mermaids? I'm your man. So I'm definitely getting like that's part of his character, is that he is just helpless and hopeless around the women's. So the brother ends up trying to educate Luffy and Sanji, and he's like, the reason why the Grand Line is called the Pirate's Graveyard is because of the 7 warlords of the sea. And then we come to find out that Hawkeye Mihawk, I got it that time too. By the way, I mean, a huge thank you to Vinny, who's been helping me with pronunciations. It's just been giving me so much comfort to know that like I can bounce off like verbally with somebody like how to say something, and that he's so willing to gently correct or to gently encourage if I'm in the right ballpark at all with any of my pronunciations. So thank you, Vinny. Hawkeye Mihawk is one of the 7 warlords of the sea, the 7 warlords of the sea, which is why he could defeat Zoro, who's trying to be the greatest swordsman in the world, with a simple little like short little kitchen knife. And so Hawkeye Mihawk is one of the 7, so we've already met someone. And also we get kind of some political intrigue, which I didn't expect in the least. And one of them was the 7 warlords of the sea. They inhabit the wild regions. The government allows them to pirate these regions, or to, I don't know, keep things in order in those regions according to their standards, the 7 warlord standards. Maybe I'm just filling in a little bit of what I'm imagining how this goes down. The government gets a cut of the winnings. It's interesting because it's almost like this nod to that the government is corrupt in its own way, because it's letting like outlaws or bandits or pirates, truly, like in the most literal sense, like govern certain areas of the seas. Then we get a nod to someone named Jinbei. Again, we're getting this hint of somebody to come who might be shown sooner rather than later. And it says, in exchange for becoming one of the 7 warlords, Jinbei released a holy terror on the East Blue. I have no idea what that means, because kind of immediately we move on and it says that we're headed for Arlong Park, and it says that Arlong used to be Jinbei's equal. And I was like, what does that even mean, used to be? So does it mean that we're Arlong of Arlong Park is less than or not as high as Jinbei, or did he defeat Jinbei and now he's above him? See, I'm inclined to think that he's here are the 7 warlords and Arlong is going to be down here somewhere. I don't know, but I'm finding this whole structure very curious and very intriguing in terms of like world building. What's the word? Like myth building, legend building, just for the whole story. I'm like, huh. So we've got a bunch of bad guys out there. So there's some evidence as to why Nami is now with Arlong because of some stuff that she hinted at in a previous time. And then we finally meet, or not finally, there wasn't a lot of hints towards him, but there were some, and we get Sawtooth Arlong, who's got this sawtooth nose. I mean, I don't know. His design is, I'm getting this theme of like under the sea fish themed or tropical Hawaiian type theme of the Arlong Park saga. Like we had the cat saga, and then we had the Baratier with the boat and all of that, and then now it's like we're on a tropical cruise but with bad guys. And so his outfit is pretty great. It looks like he's wearing a like Hawaiian shirt or some sort of a decoratively designed shirt that he has open, exposing his very muscular chest, and he has, you know, his nose and his cronies in the background who look like tough guys. I don't know. I don't really know what to say, but I was like, oh, we got a new bad guy in the house, and I like this. Every once in a while, my children, they peep in on like what I'm reading, and then they're like, oh, you're reading about that stretchy guy. That's what they call it. And they actually saw when they showed Hachi, and they're like, oh, he looks weird. And then I was reading the dialogue, and it says, you got an interesting face, Mouse Umi. And they were like, he doesn't look like a mouse. And I was like, you're right. But he does have this nod to like octopus tentacles, and he's looking very aquarium-like or fish-like. And yeah, another great design from Oda. I really love these whimsical designs, and my children really liked them as well. So at the gates of Arlong Park, there's this kid trying to get in because he said that Arlong murdered his father, and Nami, who looks like the woman who looks like Nami, strikingly similar, she slaps him across the face, gives him some money, and tells him to go away. And then what do you know? What does she say as she's walking in through the gates of Arlong Park, and she's about to greet Arlong himself, and he says to her, ah, you're back, long trip. And I was like, what is happening? They know each other? And I was outraged. Basically, yes. She has returned, and it says Officer Nami Arlong's private crew. Officer Nami Arlong's private crew. I can read, y'all, I promise. And so here she is. I was like, what? She has been working for Arlong this whole time? I was outraged. And then the chapter ends. So I just had so much to share with y'all. I just had to talk about it. And now I'm going to go back to reading because I'm at chapter 70. I must know what's going to happen. A few notes and random thoughts I wanted to start off with before I actually jumped into a summary and some things that I'm noticing in this arc altogether. But some of the things that I'm noticing just from a character standpoint, and I have some notes on my phone. You know, I just wanted to share the notes. So, some notes. Luffy loves to eat. He is all about meat, and he loves to eat. And that is just a feature in his character that keeps popping up, and that gives me delight every single time. The next thing is Sanji's legs are very strong. I know that we've seen this in the last arc, but it's something that continues to pop up, and I've been really enjoying the way that he fights. He protects his hands, and he uses his feet, and his feet are like ridiculously strong. He's all about like the death kick. I'm calling it the death kick. I don't think it's actually called that. Maybe it's just Sanji's strong kick or something like that, but he can really like bust a move with that kick, and it's very impressive. The next thing is that Sanji is very big-hearted when it comes to feeding people. Like he will forgive anybody. Like he just, it's almost like, maybe it's me, the mother in me, because I have children, that I'm like, oh, I see you, Sanji, like I love that about you, is that you have a heart for feeding people. And I do think, because I've watched a lot of chefing shows in my past. I mean, like, I'm all about the show Chopped. I was there was a period in my 20s when I was like all about the show Chopped, and I watched a lot of Food Network, and I watched a lot of Iron Chef, both the one in Japanese and the one in English. I watched a lot of it. I've watched a lot of cooking shows, and there is something about the heart of a chef, somebody who really just loves to feed other people and takes pleasure in feeding someone else. It is like a quality in somebody that I don't think we often talk about in our culture, like in American culture, the culture that I'm in, that I currently live in. And it's such a beautiful quality in somebody. It really, really is. And I love feeding people. I love feeding my family. Like, I love to cook. I take a lot of pleasure in cooking. And that's something that I've noticed. This is supposed to be quick notes, Shelly, not like ramble on for 25 minutes about how you connect with Sanji over cooking. But I connect with Sanji over cooking, and I really love that. I also think it's so funny that his Achilles heel, his weakness is women. Like, he sees women and his eyes turn into hearts, and I love that. I think it's very charming, and the more it comes up, the more it's working its terms on me. And then I was noticing also that Oda has a thing for noses. Like, there's the noses are a common thread throughout One Piece. First of all, the clown nose, like Buggy's clown nose, like that is his actual nose, I've realized, or I think y'all have told me, and he's very self-conscious about it. And so, you know, he has a thing for his nose. It's a thing. And then we have long-nosed Usopp, and he's even called in this arc in particular, on the Arlong Park arc, he's called long-nosed, like that long-nosed fellow. And then also we have saw-nosed. Arlong has a actual saw nose. And so I'm just noticing that, like, noses are a thing. Like, it's a definable characteristic for a lot of the characters. I mean, you know, there are a lot of defining characteristics for the characters, but it's something that they actually talk about and they have dialogue about. I thought that was really interesting. So we're back on the ship, and it is Usopp and Zoro's brother, and then Zoro. And I loved that Zoro is like tied up because Usopp's like, settle down, you'll open your wounds. And I thought it was so funny that they're treating him like a naughty pet almost, like a cat not wanting, you don't want to, like, you put the cone of shame around the cat or the dog because you don't want them to open up their stitches if they've had surgery. And they're treating Zoro very much the same. And again, I just love the humor in One Piece. Also, I thought it was so funny that Usopp decides that he wants to be basically the hero of this story, and that's like what he sets out to do, and he makes choices for that. It's very noble and honorable, and I noticed that a lot of you all have mentioned how much you love that Usopp is just like the common person. He doesn't have any superpowers, and that he's sort of representative of the common man. And that's what's so endearing about him. And so even in his own commonness, he decides that he wants to be the hero of this story, and he sets out saying, like, this is like, I'm here, basically. And along the way, we meet Nojiko? I'm gonna ask. Okay, so I have Nojiko here. Thank you, Vinny. This is like in real time. Okay, so Nojiko and Chabo, and they have an interesting dynamic because Chabo is like wanting to fight Arlong, and he's just willing to lose his life sort of willy-nilly about it. And she takes it as, Nojiko takes it as somebody who is like throwing away their life. And I guess that might be another theme because Luffy was like, why would you want to throw your life away to Sanji when he was like fighting for Chef Zeph? I'm not exactly, the details are muddled right now, but I do remember the moment when Luffy was like, no, just don't throw away your life. That's no way to repay somebody for saving your life, even if it was a long time ago. And so she kind of says something similar to the kid. She's like, I can't stand ungrateful brats. And then Usopp is like, aren't you kind of being hard on the kid? And she was like, I once knew a kid who faced a life worse than death, and they chose to live anyways. And so, you know, it's kind of like being hard on somebody, but to steer them in the right direction, or to make a good choice. And I thought it was just interesting how she was like, look, I knew somebody who was faced with something like a tremendously difficult life, and yet they still chose life. And sometimes it is the harder choice to live And it is maybe an easier choice to just say, I want to give it all up. Even though sometimes I think maybe as a culture, we might say, oh, they died for something they believed in. That's so noble. And maybe the harder thing would be to say that to live for it. The harder choice would be to live for it. That's kind of deep. I mean, I don't know. What do you all think? There's sort of like this, I don't know, maybe flirtatious banter between Zoro and Nami. I'm not sure yet. But he's like, so this is the real you, you know, you're an officer for Arlong, right? And she was like, I was a pirate all along. And then, you know, what he ends up doing is he like tests her. She's like, you know, I don't care about you kind of feeling. And he tests her by throwing himself or getting pushed, but I'm pretty sure he threw himself into the water and he's all tied up. So he would drown. And so he tests her because if she was a true cutthroat, ruthless pirate, she would just let him drown and be like, psha, I don't care. But he is like, I know you, I've seen you, so I'm gonna just test you. I'm gonna throw myself in the water and see what you do. And she jumps in after him and saves him. And so it's the whole thing is just like, you know, how dare you call yourself a cold-blooded witch? What kind of cold-blooded witch woman are you if you can't see a man to drown? And I thought that was just a fantastic little, I don't know, like testing moment. This whole One Piece thing so far, there's been a lot of moments where they test each other, they test their beliefs, they try things out on each other, and it's very endearing. Like that moment was very endearing to me. And then we meet a guy who, he kind of plays like a very specific role, as some people do, I think. And it's Genzo, the Cocoa villager. And boy, he looks effed up. He's got like scars all over his face and all over his arms and all over his legs. And he has weapons. He has a collection of weapons. And of course, Arlong doesn't like that. And this is when I realized that this arc is feeling very different than the others. And I quite haven't figured it all out yet. So one of the things is that we haven't met a new crew member. Like we haven't met a person that's going to eventually join the crew. Unlike all the other arcs, like we met Zoro, he joins the crew. We met Nami, she joins the crew. We met Usopp, he joins the crew. We met Sanji, he joins the crew. So we have these other previous arcs of like, just you're getting introduced to people and who they are and their skills. This arc, we haven't had that yet. We've had Nami, who is more complex than we realized. And then we have this truly like vicious person, fish man person who's got like superhuman powers. And basically I realized that Arlong is a dictator. Like he's a ruthless dictator and he has some really dangerous beliefs. So first of all, we get his scale. He's like twice the size of any human man because he's like a fish man. I forget what they're called, but and he stands taller than everyone else and he doesn't want anyone to have a collection of weapons because that is a threat to him, or that he perceives it as a threat to him. And I was like, oh my goodness. And then Usopp makes a really astute observation as Genzo is being confronted for his collection of weapons by Arlong. He says, in Arlong Empire, they want their own country. And so we're getting this, again, like this dictator, it like feeds into this dictatorship feel of Arlong. To Genzo, I believe, to Mr. Genzo, he says, and now you know your place. He knows that resistance is useless. All creatures are not born equal. Mwah ha 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 ha. And I was like, what? That is a dangerous belief. That is, that's scary. That's somebody who is, basically he's racist. Basically Arlong is racist, but in the One Piece world, by saying that not all creatures are created equal. And then, you know, Captain Usopp comes up and he's like, I'm a fearless warrior of the seas. and then he says a lie, but then you guys were always saying like, pay attention to the lies because the lies aren't always true. And they say, they call me Usopp, the Demon King, and kings tremble at my name. Flee now and live. I have 8,000 hardened killers behind me. And I'm like, are hardened killers gonna... Actually, I think the Navy shows up, right? So maybe what he says is true. Interesting. And, you know, Usopp is declaring this on a house. And what do you know? Arlong shows his strength by picking up the house. And like, I think throwing it, or like, I know he picks it up. So he shows his superhuman strength. He shows off his superhuman strength by picking up the house that Usopp is standing on. And I'm like, ah. Oh, and then he says the thing. This is the thing that I realized. Oh, this is the actual thing where I realized that Arlong is racist. But he says, we are the master race. So I was like, okay, so Arlong, you are a ruthless dictator and you are a racist in one piece. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then, you know, we cut from that very intense scene of realizing, like, you're really, I think me as the reader, I was realizing just how villainous Arlong is. And then we see Nami, and she's sitting at a grave, and you can kind of guess that maybe it's the grave of her parents, and she was like 7 million berries to go, which is money in the One Piece world. And then she reveals that she wants to buy Cocoa Village out of their slavery, out of the dictatorship from Arlong, so that they can be a free village. And so in a way, it's kind of interesting because she's being a pirate and collecting treasure, but for all the right reasons, and that she has this deal that she made with Arlong. But she has this deal that she made with Arlong, but her side of the deal is rooted in sentimentality and what's important to her, in buying back a village that has people that are important to her. So yeah. Oh, and then the SBS. Oh my gosh, the SBS, we see the mayor. We see the mayor from like several arcs ago, and the little pup, Chow Chow, or Chow Chow. And so I was just so excited. And then we're also getting Foggy's story, and his body is reunited, and I'm so excited. Foggy is just, I just love Foggy so much. I don't know. This, the whole like chapter thing, the chapter-ness, the story that happens in the chapter covers are just priceless. I love it so much. It's probably one of my favorite things thus far, and following Buggy on this journey of him being torso-less and limbless, and then now he gets his limbs back. I'm just like, I'm so excited for him. I'm wondering what's gonna happen. So then we have, oh yeah, we have Usopp. We don't have Usopp. We have Luffy and Zoro. Who's there? We have Usopp, and we have, we have Sanji and Zoro's brother. They're all sitting, well, you know, his, as we mentioned before, his bro, right? So they're out on this little boat, this sort of piddly little boat, and all of a sudden what shows up is this ginormous cow, and the cow is, Momu? He's massive. And I realized in this moment that oversized animals is like the thing. Another thing that Oda really likes, because there's like the oversized lion in Buggy's crew, and then we have this oversized sea monster, Momu, the sea cow, and he is just wonderful. And this is like, Sanji is like talking about the cow, and it's probably injured and can't forage for itself, so it must be hungry, so I'm gonna feed the cow. And then he realizes that the cow almost bites him, and he uses his superhuman leg power to kick the cow into place, and then the cow, like, I think kind of gives them a ride to Arlong Village, which is just so hilarious and wonderful, and I loved it so much. And then as we continue forward with the arc, Nami has her incredible tattoo, and then all of a sudden the tattoo makes sense, and it is her showing her loyalty to Arlong, and it's like a symbol. It's kind of, it looks like his nose, the Arlong nose on her tattoo. And she was like, 8 years ago, I sealed my I sealed my oath loyalty with this tattoo. And so I thought that was interesting. And then we get a fight between Usopp and Nami, and that was unexpected and perilous, kind of tense, because I'm like, who do I root for? I mean, I root for Usopp because he's on the right side, but Nami's doing things for the right reason, and I think that she's a little mixed up, but she can be steered in the right direction. I'm so confused, but I was delighted to see them fight. And at this point, I'm just starting chapter 76, and I'm really enjoying this arc. It feels different than the earlier arcs, you know, and I can't quite put my finger on it, except for that they're really bullying this dictator, and this truly kind of atrocious person, Arlong, who's got dangerous ideas, and there's no new person, and I'm just interested as to where this arc will take me. It's delightful. I'm so excited. Well, it happened. I shed a tear over One Piece, and wow. So I think one of the themes in this arc, though I don't know for sure because I haven't finished it yet, I am at chapter 80 right now, and I think one of the curiosities, one of the wonders, is whether Nami is actually a bad guy, or whether she is a good person, like whether she's a bad person or a good person. And in this arc, there are a couple of things. So I think when I left, I mentioned that she beat up Usopp, and it comes to find out that as we think that she has stabbed him, I mean, she does hit him across the face, and we think that she stabbed him, that she actually stabs her own hand. And in a lot of ways, she did him a great mercy, because if he would have lived running his mouth, then Arlong would have killed him for sure. Like Arlong would have sought him out and killed him. So with Nami, not only is she strengthening her bond, saying that she's on Arlong's team by hitting Usopp, but then she doesn't even harm him, she harms herself. So it was kind of like a double play there. Very clever, very interesting. I will say that Sanji is definitely growing on me, because he was like, when he finally sees Nami again, of course there's like mega heart eyes, and he's like, Nami, it's me. Don't you remember? Come back to us. And then a very meta thing happened. And I hope that Oda keeps on doing this, because then Zoro says, stay out of this. You'll complicate the story. As if he is somebody outside of the story, referencing the adventure that they're going on as the story. I loved that. That is fantastic. And then of course Sanji is over the top, and he's like, so love is always a hurricane. And then there's like some banter, like some really great banter between Zoro and Sanji, and I loved it. So like they end up both kicking, I think they're fighting, and they end up trying to kick each other at the same time. And Usopp gets in the middle of it, and he gets kicked in the face. And so of course Zoro's like, who did this? Did Nami do this? And then Sanji goes, well, actually it was Zoro and me. And Zoro was like, it was you. And I just imagine this as this like deadpan flat delivery. Zoro just being like, it was you. And so, you know, amid this sort of like chaotic backstory of Nami, we get some comic relief. And of course, we do get Nami's backstory, and it is fascinating. So as a little girl, we meet her and Genzo, who's not actually cut up at that point, and he doesn't look like somebody who's lived through treacherous times. He has 0 cuts on him. That's something that I noticed. But Genzo he finds Nami and is accusing her of stealing a book from the bookstore. And Nami is saying, we're poor, we don't have books. And he ends up dragging her to her foster mother's house, and we meet Nami's foster mother. And Nami's foster mother is Belle, and she is a pretty tough looking character. She has these little middle part bangs and head shaved on the side, a cigarette hanging out from her mouth, and a sort of no-nonsense stance to her. And so, you know, he's saying that here's your naughty kid again, and she's like, has to navigate that situation, and we find out that Nami has this dream, this absolutely incredible dream of being a navigator. And she says, one day I'm gonna navigate my way around the seas, and when I've seen everything with my own eyes, I'm gonna make a map of the whole world. And so she in a lot of ways, she's living out this dream, because she is this incredible navigator of the seas, and Luffy wants Nami on his team, and Arlong wants Nami on his team because she's this talented navigator, and she wants to be this map maker, and we find out that this is the dream that she's had for a long time. Then we find out that, then something kind of very literary and very clever happens, and it's that of Belle's backstory. So we find out that Belle was a fighting sailor, I believe. Let me see. Yes, she was a fighting sailor, and in that experience as somebody who was fighting, you know, as not a hobby, as her livelihood, that she ends up finding Nami and Nojiko and saving their lives. And even she saves them when Belle herself is in poor condition, and yet she doesn't even think about herself. She only thinks about her children, or these children that she found. And that is the beginning of their relationship. But what's so interesting is that we're in Nami's backstory, and then we jump to Belle's backstory. And the backstory within the backstory, to me, is a very literary way of writing and a literary way of storytelling. And I thought that was really interesting, on top of the interesting parts of how their characters came together and their storylines collided and how they first met. And then on top of all of that, so we kind of we see Belle's backstory. She jumps forward into into a part of which she first meets Arlong, and she actually pulls a gun on him. And I thought that was such a cool, bad, in the best, bad isn't good, move that Oda wrote for Belle, that she's like the only one that really stands up to Arlong and that he can't intimidate her. And so at this point, we find out that Arlong is demanding a lot of money for all of the children and all of the people in this village, and that Belle doesn't have the money. She just doesn't. And so there's this moment in which the girls are hiding. They're trying to not make themselves known, so that less money would be owed to Arlong per Belle, because Belle has to pay, not only like pay, so it's like if you don't have, I don't remember how many, I forget how many berries, give me one moment. I don't remember, but it was a lot of berries, we'll say. So basically Belle has to buy herself, she has to buy her life from Arlong. And if they find out that she has 2 children with her, she's going to have to buy their lives as well, because anyone who can't pay will be killed. And so the sense of money, which at the beginning of this whole backstory, Nami's really like, she wishes they have more money. Money is this contention between her and Belle, and it is something that they argue over and they fight over. And then all of a sudden money is placed in a different context. And they you know, money is now about life, like one's life, not the quality of life, but the life itself. And so we see that, you know, the girls can hide, they won't be found out. Everyone's trying to lie for Belle. And really at the end of the day, she claims the girls as her own. And it was so sweet and touching, and they're crying, and she's like, I wanted to buy you lots of nice things, books and clothes, good food. I'm sorry I couldn't do better. I'm sorry I wasn't a good mother to you. And then of course the little girls are like, don't say that, that's not true, stay with us. And as they're kind of having this really amazing intimate moment, Arlong discovers them, and he is like, you shall be the first to die for your foolish love. And she screams, I love you, as she's killed because she can't pay. And it was just it was so much more than I thought it was going to be. It really was just so much more. And so we realize at that moment that this whole thing with money with Nami means so much more to her than just having a lot of money. And when at first she said that she wanted to buy a town, I thought she wanted to buy a town for grandiose reasons, for pride or ownership or something like that. And we realized that she wants to buy everybody's safety, because it was because they didn't have the money to buy their safety that she lost someone that she really loved. And that when she's sitting at the grave of her parents, it's not her parents, it's her foster mother, the one who took her in and loved her like her own, and even more than her own. And she's sitting and talking at that, you know, on the gravestone of Belle, and this mother that she loved, and that this mother who sacrificed her life for her children. Because with her life being gone, now there was enough money to pay for Nami and Nojiko to live. A really powerful backstory. I think it touched me because I am a mother myself, and the lengths that I would go to show my love for my children and the things that I would give up. It really spoke to me to see that in this, and to realize that Nami is so much more deep than I thought she was, which is a theme for my experience with One Piece. It's just like, I didn't realize that it could be this emotional, this impactful. We get some more backstory, some happy times mixed with super sad times, and we realize that Belle gives her daughters advice. Don't ever lose to anyone. Girls have to be strong too, which I thought was great. And then she also says, and whatever, I don't know if these are pages right next to each other, but anyways, I have my screenshots all right next to each other. So it says, and whatever happens, don't curse the age you were born into. Don't worry about what anyone says, and whatever happens, never lose your ability to laugh. That is just good life advice, y'all. And if you can survive, then happy times, lots of them, will come your way. And I think it really speaks to the ups and downs of life, and just how, you know, it's like she'll be able to get through this moment and to be able to carry this grief with her, and that better times are ahead. And what a beautiful promise from a mother to a daughter. And then Nojuko, I think, reveals probably the deepest, darkest secret about Nami. And it says, that girl fights alone. To her, the most painful word of all is friend. And, you know, that I think that's where Nami's hangup is. And that's why she feels like a bad person sometimes, alongside a good person sometimes. Whew, it was really a heavy, heavy piece of this arc. And I loved it. I thought it was great, to be honest with you. And to get Nami's backstory was beautiful, wonderful, amazing. And I cannot wait to see where this will take us. It's also building, like this arc is very different. This arc is very different thus far because we're really seeing an actual evil villain that I want gone. I want him gone. I want him out of there. I don't want him to live anymore. I have no compassion on him. I want him obliterated. And I don't think I've felt that way against the enemies thus far. I mean, like, one of the first enemies was like Buggy, and I ended up loving him. But Erlong is this true evil person, fishman, and he has really proved his evilness in that he is really placing himself above others, that he uses money to guide his way, like money over life. That's just disgusting. And he killed Belle, who I ended up really caring about, and now I want him gone. Like, he needs to go, y'all. Like, he needs to go. Also, we find out that Nami does join Arlong, but it's because that she made this deal that she was going to, if she can get 100 million berries, that she can buy the town. And so she's kind of like, I'm just going to do whatever it takes to make this place that was so precious to me, or that is so precious to me. I'm gonna work as hard as I can to make it for its freedom. So she's fighting for freedom. That's kind of deep too. Wow. So lots of layers. I'm excited to see where this will go. Right now I'm at chapter 87 and it's so good. I'm sort of forcing myself to check in because I don't want to forget any of the story and the things that are exciting me. So what happens is that the Navy comes in and takes Nami's money, insists on taking her money. And in a weird way, you get the sense that maybe the Navy is working for Arlong, and that Arlong sent them to take her money so that she will continue to be chained to Arlong and write maps and be an incredible navigator for him for the rest of her life, or at least until she finishes the maps of the world. And so the Navy comes in, they swoop in, they take her money. So I don't know. I wonder, like, I have a thought. Is it the actual Navy, or is it like people that Arlong paid off to come in and take her money? I don't really know. I'm wondering, I don't know. Like, is it an actual, like, corrupt branch of the Navy or not? I don't know. But anyways, point is, her money is gone. Genzo tells Nami that they've known this whole time that she is trying to save up 100 million berries. Oh, I have some visitors.
How do we spell hole?
Hole? Like a hole in the ground?
Yeah.
H-O-L-E. I guess I answered my own question because Nami, so Genzo and the townspeople knew the whole time that she was trying to collect this 100 million berries. Nami was trying to collect these 100 million berries to buy the town to make them safe. And then Nami's so outraged that her money is gone. And then she even says, don't treat me like a fool. She says this to Arlong, don't treat me like a fool. You sent the Navy to steal my money. And then Arlong is like, in his own twisted way, is like, well, I never broke my promise. You know, I'll still give you the village when you collect 100 million berries. But considering that she had 93 million berries and the Navy just took it all, she was outraged. And she curses his name. And she's sobbing and she's crying. Oh yeah, the townspeople, they're getting really riled up at this point. They're like done with Arlong and being oppressed by him. So Genzo and all the townspeople are like, we've been waiting 8 years to fight. But because of this Nami situation, trying to buy the town and finding a lot of purpose in this, they've been holding back. And now they can just be like, Nami's over it, we're over it, we're ready to fight. And that was really, really exciting. Nami also, gosh, there was like this really intense moment in which, because she gets tattooed, she gets the ARLONG tattoo on the back of her shoulder, she, as like a symbol that she is dedicated to him, she is frustrated with him. So what does she do? We have it is like a flashback for me for when Luffy was a little kid and he like cuts himself on the face. Here she does. She takes the knife and she's like trying to cut off the tattoo that she got as the symbol of Arlong. You know who stops her? Luffy does. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then the turning point in the story, and this is what it was. Here Nami is crying. She looks at him through tear-spattered eyes and says, help. So what does he do? He takes his hat, he puts it on her head. Such a good moment, y'all. He takes his hat, he puts it on her head, and he's like, basically, he's like, I am gonna fight for you. And then he, oh my gosh, and then she remembers, she even knows, like she remembers and she reminds us readers that Luffy's greatest treasure is his hat. And you know, it really took a lot for her to be vulnerable to a friend and to ask for help. And so of course, then this is when it all goes down. So Luffy confronts Arlong and he says that you made my navigator cry, and so it's time to fight. I don't know if it's the first time that this happens, but it does seem to really come out, and it comes together that they're all fighting as a team. And so the banter that we've seen between Sanji and Zoro this whole time really takes it to another level. Like they're fighting side by side, and what's funny is that because Sanji has this whole thing where he's like constantly saying crap, it's like he can kind of come out of nowhere with a foot, which it does happen in one of the panels. Like all of a sudden you see a foot kicking one of the bad guys and he's like, stay out of this, you crap fish, and you know exactly who's talking. And so it's like a really clever writing in order to keep track of who's saying what because of his linguistic flair. It's really easy to just, you know, follow when he's the one who's speaking. And so they start to fight. I thought it was funny that they like call this giant creature over to intimidate Luffy, Sanji, Zoro. And you know, they realize that it's the cow, the massive cow, and it really, he's defeated with like one kick, I think, or I don't know, one punch. I forget exactly what happens, but it was just like, it was nothing, and it was kind of neat to see the cow show up again. Oh, and then another good moment. Oh my gosh, this is just such a delightful section in this arc. Another moment that happened was that there is a new little cover story, and it's about Kobe and Helmeppo. I'm like, oh my gosh. They look, I mean, sometimes they look miserable. There is one in which Helmeppo is holding like maybe a nail or a stake, and he's about to stake it through something, and then on the side circle panel you see what he's trying to stake through, and it's a doll of Luffy. And so he's clearly holding on to a grudge. But I had a hunch that we hadn't seen the end, or we hadn't seen the last of Kobe, and I did not expect Kobe and Helmeppo to be together. And now that we're following their story, those characters are growing on me, and it's so funny. During these fights, Luffy's feet get stuck in some cement, and he ends up getting thrown into the water, and he's in the water. He doesn't have any gum power, and he's sinking, and there's this danger of drowning. As that's going on, Zoro is fighting the octopus person, Hachi, and you know, Hachi's like, I have 6 arms, so I have 6 swords, and of course I can defeat you, lowly human, with only 2 arms. And he's like, ah, but I got 3 swords. And, you know, you see Zoro do the Zoro thing and fight heroically. And then Sanji is fighting against this like shark creature. Let me find it. So we have Karubi who's fighting Sanji, and it's this epic underwater battle. And Oda actually figures out some things that I didn't think of. So Genzo and Nojiko, they are trying to figure out how to save Luffy because he's passed out. He is going to drown soon. He's still stuck underwater. They don't know how to get his feet out. It is a whole thing. And cleverly, Oda takes, you know, Luffy's stretchy neck, or they figure it out, Nojiko and Genzo. They take his head, and then his neck stretches so that at least his head is out of water, so Luffy can breathe even though his body is still stuck underwater. Super clever. I don't know if I would have even figured that out, and they figured it out, and so I was like, ah! Luffy's gonna survive, I'm so excited. Then with the underwater fight, we realize that these half fish, half human folk of Arlong and his people, they are powered by water, so they're way stronger in water and they can breathe underwater, so they have 2 advantages over humans. And so Sanji is, you know, fighting this guy who's way more powerful in water and has the advantage of breathing. But then Sanji figures out that he can like blow water into the bad guy's gills, and the bad guy can really, and the bad guy will like suffocate, or like that fish side of him will suffocate. And so again, it was sort of like this really surprising sort of cuckoo's bananas out of nowhere, I had no idea it was going to go there kind of moment that Sanji figures out during his battle. Zoro, amid this battle with Hachi, who's got, you know, all these arms and such, and is really taunting. He's very taunting to Zoro. We find out that Zoro is fighting through the wounds that Hawkeye Mihawk is what gave to him. And it's also interesting because now he's got this new motivator in mind. Like we, the readers, have seen Zoro transform a little bit, because now with Hawkeye Mihawk having defeated Zoro in the way that he did defeat him, Zoro has this new height that he wants to achieve, not only to be the greatest swordsman ever, but also he's got like an actual person in mind that he wants to defeat, that he suffered a defeat from. So now there's these little flashbacks to Hawkeye, and it's absolutely delightful because in those moments it's like we, the readers, understand the depth of, I don't know, humiliation. We understand the motivation that that Zoro's going through because he battled somebody and lost. And so these little kind of hints to Hawkeye just really delight me, and it really kind of helps bolster and like be on the same page as Zoro, because like we watched him through that battle, we know what it means. And so it's like, Hachi, you are not the person that Zoro should be battling right now, and Zoro actually needs to heal from his wounds. Zoro needs to get his life together, let's just be real. But the person he really needs to battle is Hawkeye, and you're just a stepping stone along the way. And then overall, you know, we're constantly getting these taunts about how the fishmen are way more powerful. They're like the better species. So, you know, of course, that's like fueling my inner justice, and I'm getting all worked up, and I'm like, y'all need to get them. You need to take them down a peg. These guys are bad. Their motivations are bad. Their beliefs are bad. They need to get out of here. Y'all need to win, okay? Like, I am invested. So the final battle of the arcs have definitely begun. Luffy is caught underwater, and he's trying to be saved. Nojiko and Enzo are on the job of trying to save Luffy. And what do you know? Usopp is there. He's on the beach. And at first, he starts to fight with fish lips person guy, you know, anyways, I think the person says smack. And anyways, at first, Usopp pretends like he gets hit, and then he pretends to be dead. And then in his own consciousness, he's like, one thing I admire is that Luffy is always willing to fight to the death, fight for what he believes in, and fight. And so Usopp takes great pleasure in, knowing that about Luffy, but also feels very inspired by it. So what does he do? Usopp gets up, he has his like rubber band thing, and he gets himself up together with the tools that he has, and he decides that he wants to fight because he's feeling very inspired by Luffy. And what do you know? Usopp actually wins, which is really charming. He's like, ha 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 ha, I beat one of the fishmen. And he's like, I won. And I can see why so many of you have said that Usopp is your favorite. I can see that because it's like he has slingshots, he has his tools at his disposal. There's nothing magical, there's nothing gum powery about Usopp, and he uses his his bare hands and the small tools that he has, and like he is fighting these ginormous giants of people, and it's just amazing. And he's like, don't ever underestimate me. And so it's a really lovely moment for Usopp to like have that win for him. Through these fight scenes, we're realizing that Arlong really, really values Nami as a cartographer. And the way that the way he shows that she's valuable is by basically trying to manipulate and to keep her as a prisoner for his own purposes. And he's like, you're going to be my cartographer forever because she is this incredible navigator. And so she ends up deciding to fight, and she's like, she turns to the townspeople, amid these moments of struggle, and she's like, come and fight with me. And of course they cheer, and it's such a cool moment because you're really seeing how Nami is reaching out for help. And she's willing to say, I need you. Like, I can't fight these people alone. I need you, and I want you to help me. And so that's really awesome. Now, similarly, we see how the whole team is working together because, we're in this moment in which Luffy is like underwater. His feet are stuck in a cement block, and they had to like stretch his neck to get water. To get water out of him, to get air into him. And so finally, Sanji's like, I got this. I'm gonna save Luffy. We're gonna figure this out. Zoro's like, 30 seconds. I won't last more than that. Like, he's gonna fight Arlong for 30 seconds, and that's all he's got. And he communicates that with Sanji, and Sanji's like, that's plenty, and then dives into the water. And I thought it was really cool that they are fighting as a team. They're working as a team to fight the bad guys. And I don't know, again, I'm like, I don't know if we've ever seen them work so cohesively together, but watching them work so cohesively together is awesome. Sanji ends up breaking the concrete slab thing that are on Luffy's feet, and he becomes free from, his feet are now no longer stuck at the bottom of the ocean. And, it was another moment where Sanji's kicks are super powerful. And I love his superpower, and I love that he was so willing to save Luffy. And now Luffy's back, and it's like the final battle has begun. So, he's cracking his knuckles, and he's getting ready to fight. And Arlong says, do you know the difference between you and me? And Luffy goes, our noses? Which, again, I know I mentioned that noses are a big thing in Oda's work. They're often mentioned. And then the banter continues, and Luffy's like, our chins? Which, yes, both are very, very different. During this fight, I think Luffy says one of my favorite, I don't know, he has this like really great build up to, it's like trash talking, but it's inspirational. It's like an inspirational talk. Luffy yells at him and he says, I don't know how to use a sword, shark face. And then he goes on to say, I don't know how to navigate either. I can't cook, and I can't tell lies. I know I can't live without help from a lot of people. And I was like, yes. And I think really that encapsulates, that was like the creme de la creme. That is like the pièce de résistance of this whole thing. The theme is that he knows what he can and cannot do, and how he can and cannot help people, and that he has to rely on others for a good life, just like how others have to rely on him for a good life, and he knows when to ask for help. And I was like, yes, yes, that's what this is all about. And so again, it's a nod to their friendship. It's a nod to like the group that they formed, and it was so endearing. And then the battle continues. We realize that Arlong, even if his teeth, these like shark teeth are crushed, that his shark teeth can grow back, you know, basically immediately, and they grow back stronger and tougher than ever. And at one point, Luffy takes the shark teeth and he puts them in his own mouth. That was something else that really made me laugh. And they are really just in this battle together, Arlong and Luffy. And one thing that, I don't know if it's like, maybe I'm just not a manga, you know, shonen type reader, so I'll get used to this, but everyone's kind of like sitting back and watching the battle, which I think would be entertaining, but there's a part of me it's like, why don't you all like battle him together? So it's like 5 against 1. But maybe it is about the pride of being one-on-one and like trying to battle somebody one-on-one. And I know that Zoro's hurt and Nami has her constraints, but I'm like, Sanji can kick Arlong? Why not? Why doesn't he jump in? But you know, I also know that they're fighting for their beliefs and for pride and to win. You know, they're there to win. And so maybe it really is about like this beautiful like one-on-one dance battle together kind of thing. We have a new chapter cover story, and it is Koby and Helmeppo's Chronicle of Toil. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Axe-hand Morgan shows up, and Helmeppo clearly has some emotional connection to Axe-hand Morgan. I mean, I know it's his father, but he's like very emotional about it. I just love seeing that Koby and Helmeppo are like together toiling away as they are marine, like, I don't know, they're little marine helpers, I guess. And it's just so stinking delightful. So in this battle, back to Luffy and Arlong. So in this battle, they end up in this room, and the room has tons and tons and tons of maps. And you know, Arlong is like, hey, you know, Arlong reveals that it's Nami's maps. So we've realized that Arlong has been keeping Nami in this prison in which she has to use her skills. That was once a dream of hers, this cartographing skills and this navigating skills to create maps for him. And that this pen has blood stains on it. And this was really Nami's prison for a long time. And so in that way, you know, then Arlong really reveals his inner self, and he says, you think you can use that girl as well as I do? And Luffy, of course, takes issue with that, and he's like, use? Really? And then it's like, I think it clicks with Luffy in that moment that this room, these maps, they mean so much to Arlong, and that's what he needs to destroy, and that's how he is going to defeat Arlong, which again, I wouldn't have thought of. And it was so brilliant. So he starts to go after the room. And Luffy even says, the problem is this room. She hated being stuck here. I'm going to smash it to smithereens. And so it's like, again, not necessarily about killing the person, the bad guy. It's not about killing the bad guy. It's about taking something that they find so important and destroying that in front of them, which is like destroying them. And so that's what he goes after. And so that's what Luffy does. He decides to destroy Arlong Park. And I mean, and as he's doing it, as he's like getting this whole big tower with the cartographer's room, as he's like smashing it to smithereens, he screams, Nami! And he screams, you're one of us now! And in it, the tower crumbles and falls, and so does Arlong. And it was magical. It was magical, y'all. So Arlong Park fell. Arlong himself fell. I mean, he is nothing without his kingdom. And Luffy destroyed it. Nami is truly one of them. And then, of course, we have these, like, Navy people. We have, like, loose ends that you need to tie up. And so the Navy is like, you know, good job, but the treasure of Arlong Park is ours. and Zoro has something to say about it. He says, "We're celebrating our victory. Don't be a wet blanket," as he kind of like, you know, I don't know, hurts the marine persons. So I thought that was really good. I just love that we're kind of back to, like, he does such a good job. Oda does such a good job of like setting up, well, he did such a great job, at least with this arc, like setting up the story, the bad guys, these twists and turns with our main characters, deepening our main characters, understanding them more. And then after the battle is over, after Arlong Park falls, then we're like back to some really sweet banter and back to Luffy trying to figure out what a pirate actually is. So somebody who's helping fix Zoro's injuries, that person is like, "Is there a doctor on the ship?" And Luffy's like, "A doctor, that would be nice, but a musician should come first." And then, you know, the doctor asks, "Why a musician?" And the Luffy responds with, "Well, pirates sing, don't they?" And it's like we're back to his antics. We're back to him not really understanding what's going on, and really trying to help define what a pirate is, even in his own mind. And what do you know? Because of all of his antics, he is now on the radar for the Marines. The Marines have now dubbed him as a dangerous person, and his cute little face with his little scarred cheek is now a wanted person for the Marines. I was like, my goodness, I think it was for the Marines. Actually, he's a wanted person for the Navy. For the Navy, y'all. Okay, so then as we see it all, you know, Nami, she's not really big on goodbyes, and she wants to, like, she runs through the town, and as the ship is leaving, as the merry-go is leaving, she runs and she jumps. Jumps the shark, that's not the right term. She jumps to get back on, to get on the ship. And, you know, again, you know, she's saying goodbye to her sweet town, which is just wonderful. And she jumps onto the merry-go. There's a gap in between the town and the merry-go. And with that, she reveals that she's stolen everyone's wallets along the way. So in some ways, nothing has changed, but everything has changed. And I'm just so glad that she's back. And then we find out the meaning, the very sweet, sentimental meaning of the little thing on Mr. Genzo's hat, the pinwheel. So Mr. Genzo has this pinwheel on his hat, and we realized that he wore it for Nami as a child to make her laugh and to keep her smiling. So it was so good. It was so good. I mean, I just really loved the way that the theme of friendships and what a friend means and why asking for help is so important. What is just, those themes were just deepened and built on and made so much more incredible in this arc. I really, really liked this arc. I thought it was really good, really astounding. Maybe I'll get my thoughts together and I will be back. Sometimes I like to have something, you know, that I've been thinking about come together, and you know, I want to like add it all in at the end. It's just, I don't know, maybe like sort of like random thoughts from Shelley. This whole One Piece journey has been so much more enjoyable and surprising than I thought it was going to be. It's been so incredible to talk to so many people that love One Piece, just to get the vibes, to be invited so wholeheartedly into this group. It's just been a really lovely and incredible experience. I think that one of the things that continues to surprise me is how deep and emotional these arcs have been. I'm feeling a little sort of stingy behind the eyes. Just the meaning of friendship and why friendship was really tumultuous and difficult for Nami, what she had worked for, her own sort of twisted way of thinking about what is helping and what isn't helping. I loved that she ended up cutting out her tattoo and getting it replaced with something that was really meaningful to her, the tangerine grove. And how deep these characters are. They're so wonderful. And I love these battle scenes. I'm not a battle person. I don't know. I'm not an action-driven reader at times. I've never really been known as one. Though this Arlong Park, I think, did such a good job creating an enemy that I wanted destroyed. Those dangerous ideas of being the better race, the more important, the more powerful, that there are people beneath these fishmen and that they have the right to rule and the right to be cruel to others was such a dangerous idea that it really emotionally got me invested in wanting Luffy's team to win, right? And so I'm so, I guess in some ways I didn't expect that. I didn't expect my investment in a battle to be so strong, There have been times where I'm like kind of on the edge of my seat and chewing my nails because I don't want anything to happen to some of the characters. But in this instance, I was like, I don't want you around anymore, Arlong. I want you destroyed. Like, I want you gone. And I think it takes a lot for me to feel that way. If you haven't noticed already, like I'm a softie over here. Like I'm a very soft-hearted, person. That's just how I am. And so to really feel that way of like, you need to go. You gotta go. You gotta go. Was quite the feat. So Oda, thank you. Thank you for the lovely story. Y'all, you have to tell me what you loved about this arc. Please let me know. I'm so curious. And that's it from me. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And I will see you all in my next one. Bye.